and this is the continuation. This is part three, actually, of Bill's memory of the 37 Ford that he purchased and restored and traveled around with. And this is the memories of my middle sister, Pat, and my little sister, younger sister, sorry, Margaret, uh, memories of their adventures with the 37 Ford and my big brother Bill. The date is 5/6/2022. Okay, Pat, you're
All
on.
right, I'm on. Okay, well, this is middle sister Pat. I have two specific memories which may trigger other memories for other people, but one of my memories is of Bill allowing me to drive the Ford. He was with me, and I was probably a relatively newly licensed driver at the time, but he warned me about not stepping on the brakes too hard because the battery would slide off of the shelf wherever it was sitting, and that was not a good thing to happen. And of course, I had learned to drive on a manual, so I was familiar with that, but not with driving the Ford. And of course, at some point in the little drive that we took, I stepped on the brakes too hard, and of course, the battery fell off of the shelf that it
Oh,
was on. So that was that was one of my Ford memories. The other memory that I have is, and I hope, Bill, that I'm remembering this correctly, that this happened while you were driving the Ford, but I remember being with you in the car, and we were driving over near campus, the University of Oregon campus, and there was a fellow driving behind us who became quite upset with you for some reason. And we were stopped at a stop sign, I believe, and he pulled up next to you and was berating you up one side and down the other. And you sat there so calmly and then chastised him for using such language in the presence of your sister.
Oh my goodness.
Take the offensive is the strategy that you want to use. And change the subject to his morals.
Do you remember what his reaction was, Pat?
I just remember him driving off. So I think I could probably envision his reaction, but I don't know whether it was the correct or not.
Well, I was driving, and I have something of a memory of that, and I'm not quite sure what I had done wrong in his view. Maybe I actually did something wrong. I just don't remember what it was, but this was road rage the early years, I
Yeah.
think. And maybe for road rage, you don't have to be anything but in the neighborhood to be subject to it. So I don't know what it was, but he certainly was upset. He was alluding to the fact that he was an important person in town, and people that do that generally aren't an important person in town. I certainly wasn't an important person. I think I was probably in university at that time, and I think I was driving toward the university, and I don't know what the goal of the drive was. I'd like to think maybe it was going to that ice cream store over there near the university campus, which is...
I was going to say that same thing, going to Delhoff's. That would be my hope.
Yeah, yeah. Since it's our story, we can make it anything we want.
You bet.
But yes, I do remember that, and I I have a feeling that Dad would perhaps have set an example of remaining calm, trying to remain calm in the face of adversity. Maybe mom. I bet probably more dad. Wouldn't it be dad?
I think so, yes.
Yeah, yeah. Mom probably would jumped out of the car and beat him to a pulp or something. Yeah, that's uh, yeah. And who was in the car? Do you remember, Pat?
Just you and me is the way I remember it.
It could be. Again, it's a pretty faint memory for me as well. I don't know who else was. So yeah, that was quite an event. Stan remembers I would be brave and crawl under the car to bleed. I think it was to bleed the brakes. Um, the hydraulic brakes were added to the 37 Ford. When I bought it, it had rods that when you stepped on the brake, there was a mechanical thing that pulled on levers on the brake drums to apply the brakes, and they needed to be adjusted periodically. With a hydraulic braking system, you didn't have to adjust it quite so at least in the same way, but air would get into the system, and the brakes would be applied unevenly, and that condition lasted for a while, and so I had to bleed the brakes. You turn a little screw that would let some of the fluid out of the hydraulic cylinder that was attached to the brake drum, and it was located at the top, and so then someone needed to apply pressure to the brake. Step on the brake would make the hydraulic pressure go up, and then when the screw was loosened slightly, the hydraulic fluid would ooze out. But first, because it was at the top, any air in the system would come out first, and then once you had gotten the air out, you'd tighten the screw down again, and then that particular brake drum should apply evenly with the other ones. And that's what I was doing under there. I don't know if I ever explained to you guys what that was about. But Margaret, did you have the duty of stepping on the brake? Do you remember that at all?
I did, and as I remember it, it was a hot sunny day, and you had I believe you rented Mrs. Gothey's garage
Right.
to park the Ford in, and we were down at Mrs. Gothey's, and it was my job to sit in the
Drivers.
seat and pump the brake.
Yes. Yeah. Well, I think everybody has helped service the Ford brakes, and because Dan, you did too, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Except it was
So
a cold, icy morning usually for me. Margaret got the warm, sunny days. I got the icy cold morning.
well, she was a girl. You gotta.
And my memory of you, Bill, is that you always, you never wore anything but those tan khaki kind of pants.
Yeah.
And a white T-shirt.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah, I sort of read that era. I think you're absolutely right. And poor mom having to keep everything clean, and
she had those special pants leg stretchers, those wire rack things that
yes,
the legs of the pants while they dried.
Yes,
Mm-hmm.
yes. I don't know they make those things anymore. Maybe probably don't. But maybe people don't straighten pants out. Clothing has changed so much. The styles and all that kind of stuff since what probably that would be. It was actually college. I was in college when these adventures were taking place.
Well, it had to have been either late 50s, early 60s.
Yeah,
Me big enough to sit on to do
right.
it.
And reach the brake pedal.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I really, I think it's so neat that everybody participated at one time or another. I wonder, I just had to go coerce somebody to, I had to chase a younger, smaller person out to do that. So, gosh, if I was in college, let's say I was probably like early 20s. So that would make Pat 17, right? That'd be
Yep,
about right,
about
right?
right.
And
Yes,
then Stan, you'd be what, 15 years? That's
it's
7.
No, he would be about I'm 10, you're about 7 or 8 years younger than Pat, aren't you, Stan?
Hmm.
yes, yes.
Yes. Uh-huh.
Uh-huh. So he would have
So,
been 10.
okay,
And
okay.
I was 7 or 8.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
Yeah.
How about did we any recollections of going anywhere to get a hamburger or French fries or anything like that? Did anybody? How about anybody sitting in there was a small area behind the front seat, the only seat actually in there that a child could sit back there. Does anybody remember sitting back in there?
I think I do. I feel like I remember being behind the seat.
Yes. Yeah, the seats would lean forward.
Uh-huh.
And so one could put packages back there and small brothers and sisters.
Hmm.
So
Did
it was a coupe, so there wasn't a lot of room in front.
did we ever go to the A&W? I don't remember doing it, but it seems like that would be something you would do back then with
It was
that
certainly,
car.
yeah, I would agree. I would agree. I just don't have a recollection of it
Mm.
happening, but and that place is gone now. It doesn't exist there.
Oh.
Yeah,
I
Um,
I have a
I,
memory. Oh, go ahead, Pat.
I don't have any recollection of going any place like that. Uh, However, I do have a question about uh, when the battery would slide off of the battery shelf,
uh-huh.
um, wouldn't it disconnect the battery or pull the?
The cables would actually stop it. The cables were short enough um, that it would only let it go so far,
Oh, it wouldn't
and
slide the way off.
yeah, it wouldn't fall down through the engine compartment and onto the ground. It would just sort of, as a matter of fact, sometimes it would keep sort of at a slant as it was sliding out from this opening uh, where the battery went. As a matter of fact, maybe it wouldn't hurt to describe it slightly. It's in the engine compartment is where the battery would be, of course, and it was if the passenger or someone in a passenger seat could reach through the firewall. Toward the top of it, you could touch the battery. That's where it was physically located, and and for some crazy reason, I think one of my early inefficiencies was that there would be some easy to fix problem, and I would live with the problem and not correct it. It was not a hard thing to fix. Today it's fixed. There's a battery. There's sort of a little square frame that goes over the top of the battery, and some long bolts that go down straight down beside either end of the battery, and you can tighten those up a little bit, and it holds the battery in place, and it hasn't fallen out since uh, 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 Pat's description of it happening. I think at some point I fixed it. If it was I have a sort of a similar thing with a fan. I remember being upstairs in the Jefferson Street house and not having a fan to put in the window, but it would be so hot up there in the summertime sometimes.
Yeah.
And yet today, probably we'd go get a fan.
Yep.
And so why did we do that? Was it impoverished a view of life and we just couldn't afford it? Why would I do that? Looking back at it, why didn't I get a bracket to hold that battery in place instead of having to go jump out and open up the hood and push it back in place? Why? I wonder why I did that.
It was part of the adventure.
It must have been. It must have been. The fan was the same way. There's probably other things that we could think of where there was a problem that was maybe easily handled, but wasn't. I don't know that Mom and Dad taught us that, did they?
Well, I don't know. They were pretty frugal about things, so maybe.
Frugal, but gosh, what I did with batteries strikes me as stupid.
Well,
You could break the darn things, and battery acid would leak all over the place, and
Oh gosh.
so it was not a smart thing that I did with that battery, and
I don't think it was procrastination that Mom and Dad taught us.
no, I don't think so. I would agree with that. I don't know where I do have a couple of examples. The battery's one, the fan is one, and there's probably others. But yeah, I was trying to think of if any adventures. I put the go-kart in the Ford. Do you remember putting it in the trunk? And like going over to Rex's fuel. That's Margaret. That's where you. I rescued. I saved your life. I think.
Saved my life. Yeah, I
Yeah.
remember that.
Yeah, that was I think Rex's fuel
I remember looking behind me and you just
bouncing along.
drug
And,
along. I've seen her. Oh yeah.
Pat?
yeah. Well, we put.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Well, I'm sorry. I was going to change the topic. Pat,
Sure.
do you remember when you think of the Ford, Bill and the Ford? What comes to mind? Does anything come to mind immediately to you, or what do you think of when you think of the Ford and Bill?
I think of Bill being in the Ford and with the window, the driver's window rolled down, his arm resting on the door frame. He's in his white T-shirt and he's driving off.
Yep.
Do you remember how loud it was when he came home from college? Do you remember how loud it was?
I don't remember it being especially loud, but I know it had its own special sound, which I wouldn't be able to describe. But yeah, we always knew it was him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Parked out in front, I think.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
When I was there, the garage was still not a room, but it was a garage, right?
Yes.
I don't think I ever put the car in the garage that I can remember. It seemed like it was always out in front.
I don't remember it being anywhere but parked in front of the house on the street.
Yeah, that's where I would, if I thought of it, that's exactly where I would think of it. Stan was mentioning the other day that that parts would disappear from it on occasion.
Oh.
Anybody remember that?
Oh, I don't.
I remember something about the chrome that went around the headlights.
You got it.
Okay.
Hmm.
That was Stan. That's your recollection, isn't it, Stan?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. Now I don't remember that happening, although I'm sure it was pretty annoying. You just can't run down to your friendly auto parts dealer and get those frames. And I don't even remember now how I got replacements for it. And I don't know, I can't even imagine why anybody would want them. They don't fit very many different cars, and I don't think there were very many 37 Fords even back then.
Right. Wow.
So,
And were they stolen off of it?
I think so. Isn't that what you're remembering, Stan?
Yes. Somebody stole them off your car. They were when it was parked out front.
Yeah. That's unfortunate. And I just don't remember. Maybe just as well. Maybe I think we sometimes tend to forget the things that might have some negative to it, and that might be one for me. I don't like the idea of people stealing. Um, so maybe I just have chosen to forget that particular thing.
Pat, do you
I don't.
remember? Pat, do you remember the trip that Dad and Bill took to Denver, by any chance?
For some reason, I don't remember that. I don't remember Dad and or Bill being gone from home. I'm
Okay.
not sure why I don't remember it, but it's just a blank there.
Yeah, we're trying. Stan asked me if there was some negotiation. Why did Dad do that? I have to say I'm really glad he did, but I don't remember it ever being any other way that he was going. Like, did I say, Dad, would you like to go to as far as Denver with me? I don't even remember why uh, how Herman and Selma got targeted for having us as guests. I think it was one night. Uh, um, so I guess you're not going to remember whether there were family negotiations for that to happen. Let's see, how old are you been? Would you be then? That was I was in college then. So again, 22. So 17. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
We're back to 17.
yeah.
Close to that anyway.
I mean, I was certainly old enough to remember, so I don't know why
Certainly.
I don't. Yeah.
Yeah, and I don't know why. Well, I should have been there. Should have been a close part, or maybe when I drove off, I noticed the Dad was in the passenger seat as I put it off. I used to stop at the Richfield station down near the Little Big Y. Was it always called the Little Big Y?
To me, it was the little
Yeah,
store.
the
It
little
was,
store. Maybe that's it.
yeah. Hmm.
Right across the street was that gas station, a Richfield gas station, and I could put $1 worth of gas in it to drive to Corvallis. I said,
Wow.
yeah, yeah, different than it
Wow.
is today. Give me $1 worth of gas, and the service station attendant would probably fall down giggling today.
You took
Those
fifth of a gallon of gas.
right. $1 worth is what, like a 20.
That,
Uh, yeah, a fifth,
that's a
a
word.
fifth of
That's
a
just for
gallon.
gas.
Yeah, yeah, we probably wouldn't even get out of town. Um,
Out
Bill,
of the gas.
yeah,
uh, and I'm sure you covered this in your other um, audio recordings, but I don't know the story behind where the Ford came from, how you came about getting that, or what you paid for it, or
yeah, yeah. We touched on that in one of the interviews that we there's two in front of this particular one. This is the third and last, I think. But I just came across it by accident. It was in a service station near the University of Oregon, and at a gas station. And my recollection is that it was they wanted $95 for it.
oh
Um,
my,
but the engine wasn't working properly, and
oh,
so I towed it home, and then towed it to the Friendly Street garage. And um, actually, there's probably stories that could be told about the Friendly Street garage and my interest in mechanical things, and the Ford being a principal part of that. But but I was always interested in hot rods. I had hot rod magazines. You probably remember that I would just be fascinated by those sort of things, but never really had the money. We're spending it on, well, going to school primarily.
how old were you when you got it?
I was just out of high school. I
And you
19, 18, 19.
and you didn't have any other car. This was your
Oh,
first car?
no, the 37 Ford is the first car
Oh, oh my
that I
gosh.
ever owned. And in a sense, I still have it. As you know, it's taken up residence at Michael's house in
Yeah,
Vancouver,
yeah, yeah.
but it's still uh, I'm my name's on the title, as is Michael's. So I guess I've owned it for a long time.
Yes,
I might be a contender for a record holder.
I think so.
Yeah, just might. But my goodness, the 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 places that old car has gone, um, Denver and San Antonio, Texas, and Las Vegas, and
Oh, wow.
Disneyland, and this was a loop that the trip. The dad went to Denver with Herman and Selma's place in Denver, and then he came back on the bus, and I went on down to San Antonio, Texas, to visit Claude Sandel, and so we sort of parted our ways. But I'm so glad that whatever reason Dad went on that trip, I'm so glad that it happened that way. It seems like it's just right. That's the way it should have been.
Does Pat Pat, do you have to get going?
I really do. Yeah. Yes.
I was hoping to be able to share a memory I had before you left. Would it be possible to do that?
Okay.
Okay. It's when you talked about the man getting irate at Bill for whatever reason, I
Uh-huh.
have I have a memory of driving down. It probably would have been whatever main street it was that headed toward the cannery, that we would take when we went to the cannery. And I want to say at least Stan and I think Stan and I were in the car with Bill. Maybe somebody else was, but we were stopped at a traffic light, and a man in a car pulled up next to us on the right, and he looks over at us and he goes boom boom, with his, not with his mouth, with his motor, and
Uh-huh.
and and Bill looks over at him and he goes boom boom back at him, and the other guy goes boom boom, and you're sitting there going back and forth with revving your motors, and the light changes, and that guy took off like a rocket. And Bill, you just sat there and you just put 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 through the
Motored,
light,
motored off.
and we laughed and laughed about that. We just thought it was,
That's a
I
great
have
story.
That's a great.
no specific recollection of that, although I think it's so, I'm sure it's true. Um,
your
uh,
motor must have made some noise. It must have had
but it
some.
did. It did. Would you suppose that occurred after I got back from the Army?
It's possible. I really don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, it was noisy. It again, when I put the Chevrolet engine in it,
Oh,
had dual exhaust, and it was noisier.
oh, okay. Well, I
And,
remember it being pretty noisy between the two of us, between the two
yeah,
cars.
yeah, yeah. It was probably pretty noisy. Actually, I was always afraid of breaking something because the Chevrolet engine was more powerful than the original engine. The original engine was rated at 85 horsepower by the Ford people, and the Chevrolet engine was substantially more than that. Um, so I was always afraid that the car was designed for that 85 horsepower.
Yeah.
And so it'd be easy if you got on the gas and the clutch out too fast.
Uh-huh.
It could easily break something.
Yeah.
And never happened. It
And
never
the
happened.
battery would fall off.
And the battery, yes.
That's right, Pat.
That was one of the worst falls.
Pat, you have. I know you have to go. Do you have any other anything jog your memory about the car, or anything maybe Mom said about the car, or anything at all about the Ford?
No, I think I've exhausted my memory bank as far as the Ford is concerned.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
And I think you're going to be taking off here.
Yes,
Okay,
yes, I am.
I'll pause it here, Margaret, so we can continue on. But I'll pause the tape here. So I'll pause it right now. Okay, we're back
Well,
on.
this is the littlest sister, and My first memory, when I think of the Ford, the first thing that pops into my head is being at the Friendly Street garage with Bill on a bright sunny day because all of my days were bright and sunny when I was a kid. It seems like
Isn't that wonderful? That's great.
either that or it was raining and snowing, one of the three, but mostly bright sunny days. And I just, I think if we were heading south down Friendly Street, I remember the garage being on the left side of the road. Was it on the left side going downhill?
I believe it was on the west side, on the right side if we're heading south on Friendly.
Okay, then I'm on the wrong side of
a barn like thing.
A wooden structure.
Yep. Yeah.
As I remember being dark inside.
Yep.
And did it have dirt floors?
Well, I think maybe it might have started out concrete, but I think over time it got greasy and dirtier.
And big bay doors with lots of sunshine coming in.
Right.
And
you got it.
Okay, I remember being there with you. I have no idea why, but I was hanging on, I guess, tagging along for something to do.
How about I love the company?
Possibly, but I don't know.
Or I couldn't get rid of you. It's one of the two, probably.
Well, I was whining, and you said, "Fine, come along." So,
fine, just fine.
Yeah, but don't hold my hand and don't talk, right? No, Bill, that is not my memory.
You got that. That's somewhere in there is the truth, I think.
That is not how I remember you. And then I have a fond memory of I don't remember, Stan, I don't remember if you were along. For some reason, I think it was just Bill and I, that it was night, and you took me down to the cannery to see Mom. And I don't know, I think it was just like on her lunch break. It wasn't to pick her up. But I remember riding down to the cannery.
That would make sense on a lunch break.
The cannery had such a distinctive smell about it. Kind of a sour, I don't know. It was a pleasant smell to me, though. And all of the activity, it was night, it was dark, it was noisy, and lots of people milling around. And
how about lights?
Building lights, yeah, just.
Right.
I mean, yeah.
Right.
Yeah, it was nighttime, it was. And anyway, that's just a memory I have of a ride in the Ford. I don't have any memories of just going on a drive or, anything else, but I do have a memory of an actual ride that time. And then I guess the last thing that really sticks in my mind is that the Ford had a very distinctive smell in it.
Yeah, that's true.
It had, maybe it was a kind of an old dusty smell. I'm not sure, but very distinctive smell to it.
I'd associate it with like hot oil or something like that. But dusty, that could easily be true. That upholstery has been around a long time.
Yeah. And it seemed like there was I don't remember, other than the seats, did it have door panels on it, or was it just metal?
Oh, when you were riding in it, it was just metal.
Okay, because that's how I remember it being basic, kind of bare bones.
Yep. You have it right.
Along with the screen door on Jefferson Street slamming shut, the Ford's car doors closing have a distinct sound memory for me.
It's funny what we pick up on. And why that?
Why? Yeah.
But it doesn't matter why. But I'm always curious.
The stick shift wasn't it out of the floor, and it was a long handled with a knob on the end of it?
That's right. It had a sort of an agate-like rock in a sort of a ball shape. sort of.
Didn't all of the knobs, like the window roller knobs, they're little kind of they weren't, was it not kind of tannish or,
Yeah, or maybe a little violet. They were sort of the early days of plastics,
uh-huh.
and sort of I recall them being sort of a pastel violet, if you will.
Oh, okay. And in my mind, they're more of like a
And
tannish, maybe,
you may be right.
maybe a mauve color, perhaps. Maybe
Mauve.
there was
Oh,
violet
that's sounding right.
mauve, yeah. And the seat covers, as I remember, were a tannish, brownish. I'm not
Yes,
sure. Maybe they were
called
mauve too.
it's called I believe an upholsterer would call it taupe is the
Taupe.
name of
There
the
we go.
color.
Taupe.
Yeah,
And
I think that's true.
it was like a very coarse velvet. Um,
Hmm.
wasn't it kind of prickly like our couch was?
Yes,
Yeah.
The,
yes. Sort of reminded me of the green couch. You know, the green
yeah.
couch had sort of that feel to it.
And the pedals, the brake pedal, the clutch, and the gas pedal, they were tiny. They were
Yeah,
um, very small.
Yeah, they were.
that's very true. And I think had I think they were metal and not rubber. I think at the
Metal,
time.
that's how I remember them. Yeah, I
Now
don't.
now
And
they're shiny.
I'm thinking that could be disastrous with wet feet when you're hitting
Oh,
trying to hit the brake.
yeah, yeah.
I don't recall there ever being a problem. And my
Yeah.
lord, there in Oregon, I'm sure one's feet were wet a lot.
Oh,
Uh,
I would guess.
Remember having little holes in the floorboards?
You know, I want to say, could I sit there and actually look at the ground going by, where
Yeah,
clear through
yeah.
to the ground?
They weren't that big. They were little holes,
No,
maybe the size of your index finger or something like that.
I wasn't in fear of my life for
No,
falling.
no, it wasn't. It wasn't that.
No.
Although the big holes were handy to slow me down when the brakes weren't working.
The Ford seemed huge to me as a kid.
Yeah,
Very, very, a lot of headroom.
there's a huge amount of headroom. They were very tall, and I don't know why that's the case. And maybe men wore hats. For women, everybody wore hats
Or Betty
in
Ward.
those days, and you needed that room. There's a huge amount of headroom. If like the car that you have today, Margaret,
Yeah.
um, you probably could put your hand on top of your head and maybe raise it a couple of inches or so.
Uh-huh.
It isn't a foot of distance. So yeah, those cars were very tall.
Well,
They're much lower now.
I remember being able to see out of the windows, but I don't know, maybe I sat on my knees or something because it seemed like the dash, it was a stretch for me to see out of the front window.
Well, you're pretty small. You're pretty little. You know, you're just a kid,
Yeah.
and so I think that's true. Sitting on your knees could solve. I don't recall it, but that could have solved that viewing out problem. One of the things that when you take say a picture, if I were sitting in the car in the driver's seat and you were there going to take a photograph, it's hard to see your shoulders. You're just not up very high.
Yeah. Did
Uh,
did you remember that giving Stan and I rides in it very often? Do you remember just the two of us? Because I'm wondering, did we all sit in the front seat then?
yes, I remember some. I can't say that I remember a lot. I remember more clearly drives. I drive to say Corvallis,
Uh-huh.
and at that time the radio wasn't working. By the way, I don't know if I ever mentioned. I took there was a radio repair place in close to Roseburg, and I took the radio there to be repaired. And it's such an old thing. You need vacuum the old vacuum tube radio. The radio is huge, and it wouldn't fit behind the dashboard. By the way, it actually hung underneath the battery place on the inside of the car.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, yeah. I think that's the right place. If you moved your feet right, you could kick the case of it. It was near your feet, but had actually got that thing to work. It's my hope that someday maybe Michael will kind of complete some of those tasks that I never completed. That'd be great if he could do it, and had an interest in it. He may not have much of an interest in doing it, and he also has a family and a job and all that kind of stuff. So,
when did you have the radio repaired, Bill? When you were living at home, or?
No, this was rather recently. I was, oh gosh, I think I might have, say 10 years ago. No, 10 years ago, is that reasonable? Probably more than that, 15 years ago. I would say it was that long ago.
Oh,
it was after I no longer in California, moved back to Oregon.
Oh, okay.
If that's answering your question.
Yeah. Did the radio work in it when you had
it? When I first had it, it worked for a while, and then after a bit, it stopped working, and of course impoverished once again.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't even know how to find a repair place to fix something like that. It's pretty esoteric. This time, the internet was available, and I found it on. Actually, it was a newspaper article, and I contacted the person. I was wrong. It wasn't the internet that I found it. The internet is really helpful in finding parts and stuff, as you could well imagine. But this I found through a newspaper article about the guy that fixes old radios, and so I gave him a phone call, and he said he thought he could do something with it, and he did.
Oh. And Margaret, I think that part of that smell may have been on occasion exhaust from the engine, or from the exhaust system, because I remember.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
I remember having that smell, and I think that was an exhaust smell often, I think.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, that would make sense. Were you guys falling asleep a lot there while you were driving?
Yeah,
I hope
Margaret had this beautiful shade of...
always having the window down.
Yeah, yes. And Margaret was always a beautiful shade of blue.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think it's called cyanic from... I think is what it's from, low oxygen in your blood, perhaps. But a pretty shade, Margaret. So
shade matched my eye.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In combination to some of Margaret's memories, I remember when she was talking about it, I do have a memory of you and I, for some reason, went over to Lake Sutton over along the coast to...
Yes.
And who owned that property over there? Nothing was there. It was a trailer, I think, or something.
Yeah. The Burgess family.
Burgess, yeah.
And they would go camping. They were quite the outdoors folk. Mr. Burgess he reminded me in many ways of Floyd, and was always putting together solutions to mechanical solutions to problems. And he was a Fisher person, and I think they went over there just, I think perhaps they were retired at the time, maybe.
Oh.
And, but they would go over to, I would maybe just get away from the house and go fishing and stuff like that.
Yeah. And
yeah.
And was there, Margaret, you perhaps remember this, is there only one tunnel, or are there two tunnels going over to the coast on Route F?
I think there might be two. There's the one right by Heceta Head Lighthouse.
Yeah.
It seems like there's one further inland.
Yeah, I think there is one further inland too, Margaret, but I'm not certain. But in one of those tunnels, Bill and I were riding in the Ford, and Bill, you turned on the light. It said turn on your lights, so you turned
Yeah.
on your lights going through the
Right.
tunnel,
Right.
and and uh, when we got through, you did not turn them off, and you wanted to see, and that's what you told me. You wanted to see how many people would flash their lights at you that you had not turned off your lights. And that was an age in which you
Yeah.
drove with your lights off. You didn't in the daytime. So I don't know how many people flashed their lights at you. Maybe one or two, maybe.
That, well, we lost Bill.
We may have lost Bill. Oh no, he muted his.
I
Oh,
did. I did. I don't recall any numbers at all. I don't recall the incident, although it's perfectly reasonable that it would be something that I would do. Yeah. Do you remember the rumors that if you flash your lights at somebody, they're going to shoot at you? You
Oh,
remember that years ago?
really? Yeah, no, I didn't. I've never heard of
Yeah,
that rumor.
there's no shortage of things for folks to be afraid of, and this was a lot of years ago.
oh,
It was sort of a gang related thing or something like that,
oh,
and I don't know that. I think it might have been one of the urban legends, is what I think.
Oh.
yeah.
Hmm. Margaret, do you have any other memories of the Ford by any chance?
Well, I just have one more, and it's the very last memory or the most recent memory I have of it. Bill, I don't know the circumstances why you were driving the Ford, but you and I drove from Eugene, Mom and Dad's place on Fox Hollow. You took me home to Ashland, and you were on your way, I think, to go home to San Jose or wherever you.
Yes, I think that's true.
And we drove down I-5, and it was a very, very cold, cold winter day, and you didn't have a heater in the Ford.
That's right. You had a sort of a leather or a jacket on.
Uh-huh. And about
Yeah.
froze. But so many people would drive by and honk, as they passed us, because I don't think we were passing anybody, but people passed us. And,
That's probably
that
true.
was so fun, I guess, getting that attention because it was giving people pleasure
Yeah.
to see this
Yes.
old car.
That would certainly happen. It's part of this. It's part of the fun of it. There's a few people that's a fun thing to see,
Yeah.
and I think a lot of people think, well, here's a guy keeping a little bit of history alive.
Yeah.
And you know what? That's what we're doing today, is trying to keep a
Yeah.
little bit of history alive and,
Well,
and, and actually expand on it. I love the idea of the stories that one might tell about, like just with that one photograph. So uh, this is going to be fun to pursue. But much like I think the people honking says, that's I when I was working at well, that might be a generous statement. When Bruce had that used car lot, and I would be helping out there, people would come in, and a lot of people would, mostly middle-aged and slightly younger guys, would talk about the car they had when they were like in high school or shortly thereafter in their early 20s,
yeah.
and they wish they had it. They wish they still had it. And I would smile to myself about, well, I still have my first car.
Yeah, yeah, you
I
do.
didn't say it. In fact, I didn't even talk about it.
Yeah.
Uh, uh, but after a while, I got a little, it was hard to maintain my enthusiasm
Yeah.
for their cars,
Right.
hearing about their cars, but it was something they apparently needed to talk about. So at least I hope I was kind once in a while with those people. Uh,
Daniel found the same thing true with his Challenger, his 70 Dodge Challenger. It's the old guys that come up to
Yeah.
him, will talk to him about it, and they reminisce about their old car, and Daniel goes, yeah,
Right.
inside he's
Right.
going, yeah, 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 and he's smiling on the outside, but and
He
like you,
should. That's courtesy. It seems to me. I
yeah.
remember there's a word called courtesy. I don't know what it means, but I think it might apply here.
Well, it wasn't just you that got a little annoyed at having to stand there and listen to the old boy stories because Daniel, does the same thing with
Yeah.
his. He just
Yeah.
it just goes along with the car.
Yeah, it does. I think it really does. So that might be related to like at the shop where he works, right?
Um, oh, that this happens, you mean?
Does it happen there or when he was driving the Challenger?
It's when he's driving, when
Yeah.
he'll pull up into the gas station or to the minute market or wherever he's going, and somebody inevitably will come over and talk to him about it and share their story.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. And does he still drive that car?
Yes, at the moment it is parked in his garage because the tags are expired on it and he hasn't had them renewed yet, but it's licensed and what? Yeah, I should say, well, the tags. It's insured, I'm saying, and but it does need some engine work, of course. Those old cars, you tinker on them all the time.
Uh, there's an old saying about the cobbler's the cobbler's kids go barefoot or something like that. He has the
Yeah.
skill to fix that. I would bet, but maybe not the time or money or inclination.
It's exactly the time and the money to do it,
Yeah,
and not a good space to work in it or work on it. The garage there
the
at
garage is
his
pretty small.
pretty tiny. Yeah,
Yeah.
that car fills it completely.
Well, maybe we have some better weather coming. Maybe that'll help.
Well,
Others.
supposedly he's supposed to come out, and he and Larry are supposed to get the garage at our place cleaned out so that he can
Oh,
put it
that'd be
there
great.
and have the space to work on it. But
Yeah.
been talked about for quite some time. I'm not sure when that might happen.
Well, yeah. So that's probably an area that you don't want to get too enthused about the possibility. Sounds like a great idea, though.
Oh, it's a great idea. Yeah, I'd love to see it. Did I tell you? Never mind. This is not. So, Stan, do you have any questions for me? Any other memories I can share?
Have we lost Stan?
Maybe.
Well, it could be.
I see his little thing. Yeah, I think we've lost him.
Yeah. Yeah.
He's muted or maybe he had a dog issue.
He'll sometimes have to go pacify a pup on occasion. Yeah, that's true.
Is there the ability to edit these audio tapes so that as we're sitting here rambling on and on and on, that he can cut this?
I do think so.
Okay.
That's possible to do.
Okay.
It's really amazing what tools are available now, and a lot of them are free. I don't quite understand how that works, but
Yeah, I don't know.
it's true. The stuff we're talking about as far as doing something that seems to me quite potentially quite creative with that old picture. And bringing it in a way, bringing those people in a way alive again.
Yeah.
And especially if you have the German accented narration. Oh my gosh, that's I envision or whatever.
Well,
I envision how that might work, and it seems like it could be terrific.
I'm sure there must be a program where like I could be talking and you could record it with all sorts of different accents, make it sound.
I don't know about that, although I think it's certainly technically possible. I don't know whether that exists. Like, oh, well, you know what? On the cell phone, there's a thing called, there's a thing that you can take a selfie and it'll distort your face so that you can look like a monkey or that you have antler like deer horns on or something like that. Have you seen those sort of thing?
I have. Yeah.
Yeah. And so I think it's obviously technically possible to do. Some
Yeah.
of those distort your voice. So yeah, I bet you could. Um, um, yeah, a lot of different ways to be creative here, and really inexpensive. Uh, you don't have to spend $400 to buy a
Uh-huh.
particularly interesting piece of software. Uh,
Uh-huh.
with the stuff that we're using right now with the family library is free. It's not cost. I think this is true, that it's not costing us a thing. It's taken like a hobby. You can spend an awful lot of time on it. I certainly have spent a lot of time moving pictures
Yeah, you
around,
have.
writing witty little sayings underneath the photographs, and like these interviews that we're doing, a lot of time.
Uh-huh.
But I have to say, very largely, it's been a wonderful, fun thing to do.
Bill,
So,
Well, oh,
I'm
oh,
sorry, Margaret.
Stan's back.
Yeah, I had to step away. I didn't want to interrupt the two of you talking, so I just stepped away real quick and came back. So.
Yeah, we speculated that was the
Oh.
case. We blamed a dog, by the way, for it.
Okay. Uh, Bill, I did have a quick question. Margaret, but you wanted to say something. I can remember what I was going to ask, so.
well, good, because I don't remember what I wanted
Oh.
to say.
Okay. Bill, just by chance, let's say you lived in a place that had a five-car garage, and would you entertain the thought of having the Ford there with you today, right now today?
No, it's funny you mentioned a few days ago, I think I was talking to Leanne, that one of my favorite things is if I won the lottery. So there was no financial considerations. What would you do? And when you apply it to the car, what I was speculating it'd be fun to do was it was to drive or tow, get trans. Well, if money is an object, I'll have somebody ship it down, for example, and they put it in the garage, and then figure out what else I might do, like install the radio, get the radio installed. It'd be neat to have that old radio working. It's very close to being able to do that. And that would be an awful lot of fun. As far as anything else, I think I'm missing a hubcap or two, one I think. So I set about finding a 37 Ford hubcap, and so there's not very many things that I would want to. Oh, the driver's side window is cracked. I would replace that.
Wasn't it
And
always cracked?
most recently, I think that's true at one time, and I replaced it. But
Oh,
when I had the upholstery done, and the restoration of the Ford, the upholsterer cracked that window.
oh
And
dear.
it's an easy. Well, it's actually a fairly trivial task. It's a flat piece of glass with a little plastic film in the middle of it. I mean, like automobile glass is. So it would not be hard to replace it. It would just be a matter of doing it. And so, yeah, I think I'd be tempted to take it, start like we'll say with the radio, and so you poke around, say, oh my gosh, I forgot to put like rubber pads on the brake and clutch pedal, for example. I think the accelerator pedal probably is fairly well worn, and maybe replace it, do things of that nature. So yeah, that'd be it. I think I would really get a kick out of that. In many ways, it's sort of like what I'm doing with the family library, is just poking away at it. I'll come and make a change or two, or think of something like we've thought about with this old photograph. It's just a lot of fun to do, and I think I do that with the car,
Mm-hmm.
with the Ford. So
So you would have it there with you then.
I would do that, and then just because I think it'd be fun to complete a few things that I got started, and then ship it back to at some point. I've done ship it uh, back to Michael.
Hmm.
Michael has an old Porsche that he's had forever. For him, he's had it forever. That he's always been wanting to do something with it. And I remember thinking, that's just my history with the Ford. And finally, uh, it was in a place where I had the time and money, mostly the money, to have it restored.
Hmm.
And I wish he could do something
Yeah.
like that, because I think he'd like to.
Yeah.
Margaret, is
Uh,
there anything else that you can remember about the Ford or Bill and the Ford?
Um, I'm afraid I can't. I don't know. Did you and Mom sometimes go off to work together in the Ford?
I don't remember that happened, and I right offhand I can't imagine why we didn't do that. Um, but but I don't remember ever doing that with Mom.
Okay. No,
Yeah.
I don't have any. I know Stan, you asked Pat if she had any mom memories,
Hmm.
you know,
Hmm.
with the Ford. I did. I don't.
The only thing I remember about the Ford and Bill, and Margaret, perhaps you remember this, is I think it was on Fridays, Bill, that you came home from Corvallis,
Uh-huh.
and we would know about the time that you would show up. And
Sure.
and Margaret and I, in our great excitement, uh, I would climb up the cherry tree and listen for the Ford.
Oh no, really?
Or
Cute.
yeah, oh yeah, you coming home in the Ford was like a major event for Margaret and me, and probably for Mom too and Dad. I'm guessing.
Did I owe you money or something?
Perhaps perhaps you did owe us some money. Um,
Oh,
I probably still do, actually.
but what I remember on occasion, Mom would hear the Ford, and as Margaret said, the Ford was actually quite noticeable sound-wise. You could hear it coming from quite a ways. And on occasion, Mom would hear the Ford before Margaret and I did, and Mom would say something like "Bill's home" or something like that, and we would jump up and down, Margaret. And do you remember the excitement of having Bill coming home on the Ford? Do you remember that?
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Where did you end up? I ended up in the cherry tree. Where did you end up?
I don't remember being in any particular spot.
Uh-huh.
I just know that I remember how much it seemed like he was always gone, and
Yeah.
I missed him so much. And I can remember him calling one time, and I happened to answer the phone, and he said right away, "This is your favorite big brother."
Uh-huh.
Oh yeah, this is my favorite big brother because Stan, you were always there, so.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Pat and I
But
were always there. Yeah.
or when you sent home, I remember you sending like a package full of, maybe it was Christmas time, when you were in the Army, sending home a package with stuff in it for us and unpacking that package. It was always a big deal, yeah, when you would come home.
Hmm.
So, but
Those are
no,
wonderful.
I don't
Those, those,
remember.
those are wonderful memories. That's wonderful.
Well, if there's unless Bill, is there anything else you want to at this point? We can certainly make another recording about the Ford if anybody can remember anything.
Or even miscellaneous
Yes.
remembrances,
Yeah.
and all sorts of things could come in. How Stan, there's a memory of the Ford. I think that you may have. You and I drove. I think it was the Mackenzie or the Willamette River, and we
Oh,
camped overnight.
yes. Thank you, Bill. I forgot about that. Yes, exactly that. Yeah. I think Mom had. I had wanted to go camping, and there was no chance on earth that Dad would take me camping. There was
Yeah.
just that was out of the question. And
Uh-huh.
I think Mom coerced you into taking me camping, and so you and I drove up, sleeping bags in the back. I don't recall
Yep.
us having any. Probably Mom just tossed in a bunch of food into a sack,
Right.
and off we
Right.
went. But you and I went up late afternoon, and
Uh-huh.
I remember playing around the river. I remember playing around the river, and you had gone. You were on a hike somewhere. I don't know where you had gone, but
Uh-huh.
one of the things I remember you doing very courageously was to eat some berries, and you didn't know what the berries were, and I didn't know of course, I didn't know what the berries were, but you ate some berries, and I commented, are you sure? Are you sure those aren't poisonous or something? Even as a little kid, I was,
Yeah.
always
As
very,
you, as a little kid, you had more sense than I did.
perhaps so, but
I know what you're saying, and I agree with you.
but but you didn't, to the best of my knowledge, you didn't pass away from eating those berries, but you
I,
did.
I was
Uh,
I was your ride home, so I can see why you would be worried.
yeah, yeah, yes, exactly. But I do
You'd
remember
still
you
be up
sleep.
there.
I'm sorry, what was that?
I said you'd still be up there if anything bad had happened.
Yes, I would. Yeah, I would still be wondering where my big brother was. So, why didn't he come
Yeah.
and take me home? But
Yes.
I remember that night we had a I think we had a I think we had a fire.
Uh-huh.
It doesn't.
Uh-huh.
But you slept in the car in the Ford, and
I
I
did.
slept on the
Uh-huh.
ground in a sleeping bag.
Where the
And
berries were.
and bright and early, we I don't know if we had any food or not, but we took off. We went. You had fulfilled your mission to Mom, I think, and
Yep.
you took me
Yep.
home and deposited me on the front steps, and you may have gone back to school or something. I'm not sure where you went, but yes, I do remember that, and I had a good time. I remember having
I,
a
I,
good
I do
time.
remember it. Also, I'm glad you do too. I remember it somewhat better than you do. I mean, in a more good light than you do. I suspect yours is probably more honest than mine.
Well, what part do you remember,
Well,
Bill?
the tent that I set up by myself, and
Oh,
I picked you a gourmet meal, and
fighting off the bear.
that part.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and the bear that
yeah,
attacked us. Yes, yes.
that's right. I drove off courageously. Yeah,
Looking for help, of
that's
course.
my version.
Yeah, yeah. You were just looking for help, I think you said.
That's right.
Yeah. Well, in that case, unless anybody objects, I'll end the tape here and call it a wrap on the tape.
Okay,
Oh, it is
sounds good
almost
to me.
12:30.
And Margaret, I just gotta, I'll do that right now.